Alright, chapter 5. Can change happen in an instant? Awaken the Giant Within, Anthony Robbins. Can change happen in an instant? Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in a twinkling eye. Corinthians 15:51. For as long as I remember, I've always dreamed of having the ability to help people change virtually among them anything in their lives. Instinctively, in an early age, I realized that to be able to help others change, I had to be able to change myself. Even in junior high, I began to pursue knowledge through books and tapes. I thought teach yourself the fundamentals of how to shift human behavior and emotions. Of course, I wanted to improve certain aspects of my life, get myself motivated, myself to evolve, to take action, learn how to enjoy life, learn how to connect and bond with people. I'm not sure, but somehow I linked pleasure to learning. There are things that could make a difference, quality of people's lives, lead them to appreciate, maybe even love me. As a result, by the time I was in high school, I was known as Solutions Man. If you had a problem, I was the guy to see. I took a great pride in my identity. The more I learned, the more I addicted to the big game. I learned learning even more. Understanding how the influence of human emotion and behavior became an obsession for me. I took speed reading class to develop a very voracious appetite for books. I read close to 700 books in a few years. Almost all of them are areas of human development, psychology, influence, psychological development. I wanted to know anything and everything that was known about how to increase the quality of our lives. Tried to immediately apply myself to share with other people, but I didn't stop at books. I became a fanatic for motivational tapes while still in high school, saving my money to go over the different types of professional development seminars. As you can imagine, it didn't take long for me to feel like I was hearing nothing but the same message reworked over and over again. This appeared to be nothing new, but I became a bit jaded. Just after 21st birthday, though, I was exposed to a series of technologies that could change people's lives in lightning-like speed. Simple technologies like Gestalt therapy took tools influencing Ericksonian hypnosis, neuralistic programming. When I saw these tools could really help how people create change the minutes that previously took months and years and decades to achieve, I became an evangelist in my approach to them. I decided to commit all my resources to mastering these technologies, and I didn't stop there. As soon as I learned and I applied it immediately, I never forgot my first week of training in neuro-linguistic programming. We learned something like how to eliminate lifetime phobia in less than a half an hour. Something as though many forms of traditional therapy could, as much as 5 years or more. On the fifth day, I turned to a psychologist, psychiatrist in the class said, "Hey guys, let's find some phobias and cure them." They looked at me like I was crazy. They made it very clear to me I obviously wasn't an educated man, that he had to wait up until a 6-month certification program was completed to go through with the testing procedure. If we were successful, only we would be ready to use the material. It wasn't willing to wait. So I launched my career by appearing on radio and television programs throughout Canada, eventually in the United States as well. In each of these, I talked about the technology for creating change, made it clear that if I wanted to change our lives, what was this empowering habit of the phobia that had controlling over the years. Behavior and emotional patterns change within a matter of minutes, even though they might have tried to change it in years previously. What was this radical concept? You bet. I passionately argued all the changes created within this moment. If it's just a moment, it's just that most of us wait until certain things happen and decide to make a shift. To truly understand the brain work, I argue we can stop an endless process, analyzing things what happened to us. If I could simply change what was linked to pain and pleasure, we could easily change the way our nervous system has continued and taking charge of our lives immediately. As you can imagine, young kid with no PhD was making their controversial claims. The radio did not go over very well with some of the traditional trained mental health professionals. A few psychiatrists attacked me, some on the air, so I learned to build a career in changing people on two principles: technology and challenge. I knew I had a superior technology, superior way of creating change with the base of creating a crucial understanding of the human behavior the most traditional psychologists we know trained in. I believe that I challenged myself and the people that I worked with enough that I could find a way to turn the virtually anything around. A particular psychiatrist called me a charlatan and a liar and changed charged that I was making false claims. I challenged the psychiatrist to suspend his pessimism and give me an opportunity to work with one of his patients, someone he hadn't been able to change for working with for years. It was a bold move. First, he didn't comply with my request, but after utilizing a little leverage, a technique I'll cover in the next chapter, I'll finally got the psychiatrist to let the patient come on her own one-to-one, how to own one to my free guest events, allowing me in front of the room to work with her. In 15 minutes, I wiped out a woman's phobia of snakes. At the time, she had been treated for over 7 years by psychiatrists who attacked me. To say the least, he was amazed, but importantly could imagine references created for me with a sense of certainty it gave me about what I accomplished. I became a wild man. I stormed across the country demonstrating people how quickly change could occur. I found no matter where I went and people were initially skeptical, and I was able to demonstrate measurable results before their eyes. I was able to get not only the attention, interest, also the willingness to apply what I talked to produce measurable results on their own lives. What is the two that most people change if it takes so long? And one reason, obviously, is most people had tried again and again with the willpower to make changes and failed. The assumption that men make the important changes must take a long time, very different to make it. In reality, the only difficulty because of the yes do not and don't know how to change. We have an effective strategy. Willpower is not enough. No, if we want to achieve lasting change, the second reason we don't change quickly is that as our culture we have set beliefs that prevents us from being able to utilize our inherent abilities. Currently, we link negative association to the idea of instant change. For most, instant change means that you never really even had a problem at all. You can change it easily. Why don't you change a week ago, a month ago, a year ago? Stop playing. For example, explain that quickly could perceive the recovery, loss of a loved one, being filled with a differently, physically, with the capability of the doing the next morning. Why? They don't know why. Because we set beliefs in our culture that we need to grieve for a certain period of time. How long do we have to grieve? It depends on the condition. Think about it this way: the next day after you just loved one, you didn't grieve. After you just lost the loved one, you didn't grieve. Wouldn't that cause a great deal of pain in your life? First, the people who immediately believe you didn't care about the loved one and loss, and based on the cultural conditions, you might begin to believe that you didn't care either. The concept of overcoming death is easily just too painful. We choose the pain and grieving rather than changing our emotional, and we satisfy with the rules, cultural standards, what appropriate have been met. There are in fact cultures where people celebrate when someone dies. Why? They believe that always known the right time for us to leave Earth and death is graduation. They also believe that if we're grieving about someone's death, you would indicate nothing but a lack of your understanding of life. You would demonstrate that your own selflessness of this person has gone to a better place. You're feeling sorry, but knowing yourself, the link of the pleasure and death, the pain of grieving the soul of the grave is not part of the culture. I'm not saying grief are bad or wrong. I'm just saying that we need to realize based on the belief that pain takes a long time to recover from. As I spoke from coast to coast, I kept encouraging people to make life-changing shifts, often in 30 minutes or less. There's no doubt I created controversy. More success I have, the more sure the intensity I became as well. The two tell the truth. I was occasionally confrontational, become confidential, more than a little cocky. I started out doing private therapy, helping people turn things around, and began to do seminars. With a few short years, I was traveling over the road with 3 weeks out of the 4, constantly pushing myself and giving myself with all the work to extend my ability to positively impact the largest number of people I could in the shortest period of time. The result I produced is somewhat legendary. Eventually, the psychiatrists and psychologists stopped attacking and actually became interested in learning my techniques for use of their own patients. At the same time, my attitudes changed, but I became more balanced, but never lost the passion. I wanted to help the people as many as I could. One day, about 4.5 years long, not long after the Limited Power first published, I was signing books after giving one of the business seminars in San Francisco. All the while I was reflecting, incredible awards had come following through with the commitments that I had been made myself until in high school. Commitment to grow, expand, contribute. They were making a difference. I realized each of the smiling face came forward how deeply grateful I was to develop skills that can make a difference in helping people change virtually anything in their lives. As the last group of people finally began to disappear, one man approached me and asked me, "Do you recognize me?" He had seen literally thousands of people in the month alone. I have to admit I did. He said, think about it for a second. And I'm looking for a few moments, and suddenly it clicked, and I said, New York City, right? And he says, that's true. I did some private work with you in helping you wipe out your smoking habit. He nodded and said, wow, that's years ago. How are you doing? He reached in his pocket, pulled out a package of Marlboros, and pointed at me, an accusing look on his face, and said, you failed. The launched into a triad about inability to program him effectively. I have to admit, I was rattled after I had built a career of my absolute willingness to put myself on the line, and the total commitment to challenging myself with the other people, to my dedication, trying anything in order to create lasting, effective change, lightning-like speed. As emotion continued to berate and effectiveness in curing his smoking habit. Wondered what had gone wrong. Could it have been that maybe the ego or outgrown true level of capability skill? Gradually, I began to ask myself the better question: what can I learn from this situation? What was really going on? What happened? We worked together. As I'm accepting to hear that he had resumed smoking a week or so after therapy, it turned out that he stopped smoking. It turned out that he had stopped smoking for 2.5 years and a half after I'd worked with him less than an hour. But one day he took a puff, and now he was back in 4-day pack habit, plainly blaming me because the changing had not endured. Then it hit me that the man was not being completely unreasonable. After all, I had been teaching something called neuro-linguistic program. Think about the word program and suggest that you could come to and that would program you for everything and that would be fine. You wouldn't have to do anything. Out of my desire to help people to the deepest level that I have made the very mistake that I saw the other leaders in professional development industry make, I had begun to take responsibility for other people's change. That day I realized I had inadvertently placed responsibility for the wrong person, me, and then this man. Any one of the other, or any of the other thousands of people that I worked with could easily go back in their old behaviors. Then a run difficult challenge began because they saw with a person responsible for the change, and if things didn't work out, no pain did follow through the new behavior. As a result of a new perspective, I decided to change the metaphor for what I do and stop using the word programming because I was continuing many NLP techniques, neuro-linguistic programming techniques. I believe it is inaccurate. A better metaphor, a long-term change of condition solidified for me when a few days later my wife brought a piano tuner for our new baby grand. This man was a true craftsman. He worked on every string of the piano literally hours and hours, stretching each one to just the right level of attention to create the perfect vibration. At the end of the day, the piano was played magnificently. When I asked him how much I owed him, he said, don't worry, I'd drop off the bill on my next visit. My response was, next visit? What do you mean? He said, I'll be back tomorrow and the day, and then I'll come back once a week for our next month. Then I'll return every 3 months for the rest of the year, only because you live by the ocean. I said, what are you talking about? Didn't you already make all the adjustments to the piano? Isn't it just set up properly? Yes, but the strings are strong, and keep them perfectly level of tension. We got to condition them, say, at level. I've got to come back and retighten them on a regular basis until the wire is trained to stay at its level. And I thought, what a business this guy has. But also great lessons of that day. They exactly what do we have to do if we're going to succeed in creating long-term change. Once a week, once effect change what should be referenced immediately, then have a condition of the nervous system succeed, not just because of the consistency. You want to going on aerobics class just one time and say, okay, now I've got a great body and I feel right. Same true in emotions, behavior. We've got to condition ourselves successful for love of the breaking through of the fears, although that the conditioning with the development patterns automatically leads to consistent lifelong success. We need to remember pain and pleasure shapes all behavior. Pain and pleasure can change our behaviors. Condition requires to understand how to use the pain and pleasure. We're going to learn the next chapter of science for the develop to create the change and you want your life. I call it science for the neuro-associative conditioning, or NAC. What is NAC? Neuro-associative conditioning is the step-by-step process of the conditioning with the nervous system to associate pleasure to those things you would want continuously move toward, and pain to those things you need to avoid in order to succeed consistently in your life without constant effort over the willpower. Remember that this feeling that we have with the condition associated with the nervous system neuroassociations that determine our emotions and behavior. We take control of neuroassociation. We can take control over the life. Chapter will show us how the condition neuroassociations and power to take on action produce the results you always dreamed of and designed to give you a knack of creating consistent, lasting change. Things don't change, we change. Henry David Thoreau. What are two change everything wants in life? What are two change everyone wants in life? It isn't true what we all want to change either. One, how we feel about things, and two, our behaviors. If the person have then through tragedy, they were abused as a child, they were raped, lost loved one, lacking in self-esteem. The person clearly remained in the person until the sensation they link themselves with these events and the situation change. Likewise, if the person overeats, drinks, smokes, takes drugs, they set of behaviors that must change. The only way with it happening to the linking the pain with the old behavior and the pleasure with the new behavior that sounds simple, but I found that in order for us to able to create true change with the change of the last, we need to either develop a specific system for utilizing any techniques Lou and I learned to create change. But there are many. Every day I'm picking up the new skills and the new technology from the variety of societies. I continue to mean many of the neuro-linguistic programming, Erickson techniques have been and began my career. Some of the finest availability, some of them are the finest available. You always come back to utilizing them when framework at 6 fundamental steps of the science of the neuro association conditioning. Creating neuro associations conditioning as the way to use the technology for change. Neuro association conditioning really provides a specific syntax and order to sequence of ways to set any skills into a great long-term change. I'm sure to recall the first chapter I said of the key components creating a long-term change with the shift of belief. The first belief we must have that we're going to create change quickly is we can change now. And again, most people that with our society unconsciously linked a lot of pain to the idea of being able to change quickly. On one hand, we desire to change quickly. On the other hand, our cultural programming teaches us to change quickly means that maybe we'd never even had a problem at all. Maybe we were just faking it or being lazy. We must set up the belief that we can change in a moment. After all, to create the problem in a moment, you should be able to create a solution too. You and I both know that when people finally change, they do it in a moment, don't they? They instantly change with the change of the curves when they why not make that the instant now? Usually it's the getting of the ready for the change that it takes people at the time. We've all heard of the joke. How many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb? Just one, but it's very expensive. It takes a long time. The light bulb has to change with the garbage. Yeah, you and I have to oversaw ourselves ready to change. You and I have become our own counselor and the master of our lives. Second belief that you and I must have we're going to create a long-term change that if we're responsible for our own change, not anyone else. In fact, there are 3 specific beliefs of the responsibility that a person must have if they're going to create a long-term change. First, we must believe something must change with the note that it should change with the note that it could, ought to, but is absolute must. So often I hear that people say that the weight should come off of the procrastinating, lousy habit. My relationship can be better by now. We should, and all ourselves in our life still won't change. It's only that something becomes a must of the beginning of the process of truly doing necessary to shift the quality of our lives. Second, we must not only believe in the things that must change, but we must believe that it must change it, and we must see ourselves as a source of change. Otherwise, we will always be looking for someone else to make the change for us. We always have something else to blame when it doesn't work out, and then we may be the source of the change if our change is going to last. Third, we believe that I can change without believing that it is impossible for us to change. That we've already discovered in this last chapter, we stand no chance carrying through our own no chance of carrying through on our own desires. Well, without the 3 core beliefs, I can assure you, change you may make stands a good chance, being only temporarily. Please don't misunderstand. I was always smart to get a great coach. I was always smart to get a great coach, an expert therapist, counselor, someone who have already produced the results for many other people to support. If you're taking a proper step of the conquer your phobia, quit smoking or losing weight, but in the end, you have to be the source of the change. The interaction I have released a smoker that triggered me to ask the new question of my life with the source of change, why also effective throughout the years we had to set me apart from others who tried to help same people to have the equal intention were unable to produce the result. And when I tried to create the change that someone failed with what happened then, they prevented me from producing and changing. I really committed to the helping the personal mistake that I began to ask larger questions like what really makes the change happening in an order form of therapy. All therapies work some of the time. All forms of therapy fail to work at other times. I also began to notice the other interesting things. Some people want therapists. I don't think that we're particularly skilled and still manage to make the desired change in a very short period of time in spite of the therapist. I also saw other people who went to therapists and I considered excellent, yet were not helped to produce a result that they wanted in a short term. After a few years of witnessing thousands of transformations and looking for the common denominator finally hit me, we can analyze our problems for years, But nothing changes until we change the sensation we link to any of the experience of the nervous system. We change the capacity to do this quickly and powerfully if we understand. Alright, the power of your brain. What a magnificent gift we were born with. I learned that our brain can help us accomplish virtually anything we desire. The brain capacity is nearly unfathomable. Most of us know about how it works so light. Let's briefly focus on the unparalleled vessel power, how we can condition it and consistently produce the results we want in our lives. Realize that the brain is eager to awaits every command ready to carry out anything that you ask. It always requires a small amount of fuel for the oxygen, blood, little glucose. In terms of the intricity and the power of the brain defies our own, even our own greatest modern computer technology. It's capable of processing up to 30 billion bits of the information per second and post with a boast equivalent of 6,000 miles of wiring cable. Typically, a human nervous system contains 28 billion neurons. Nerve cells designed to conduct impulses. Without neurons or nervous systems, you'll be unable to interpret the information received that our sense organs aim and able to convey to the brain, unable to carry out instructions from the brain as do we do. Each neuron is a tiny self-contained computer capable of processing about 1 million bits of information. Neurons act independently, but they also communicate with the other neurons through the amazing network of 100,000 miles of nerve fibers. The power of the brain processes information staggering, especially with considering that the computer, even a faster computer, make connections only one at a time. By contrasting reaction with the one neuron can spread hundreds and thousands of the other span less than 20 milliseconds. Give it the perspective is about 10 times less than it takes to blink. The neuron takes a million times longer to send a signal with a typical computer switch, yet the brain can't recognize a familiar face in less than a second and feet beyond a most powerful computer's brain. Achieve the speed because of the step-by-step computer. Billions of neurons can attack the problem simultaneously. So with the immense power at our disposal, we can get ourselves a feel of it happening consistently. Why can't we change our behavior like smoking or drinking or overeating, procrastinating? Why can we immediately shake off the depression, break off through their frustration, feel joyous every day of our lives? We can. Each of us have at the disposal the most incredible computer on the planet. Unfortunately, no one gives us an owner manual. Most of us have no idea how our brains really work, so attempting to think our way to change it when in relation to behavior is rooted in our nervous system in the form of physical connections, neural connections, and what are called neuroassociations. Neuroscience, your ticket to lasting change. Great breakthrough in our ability to understand the human mind is now available to give the marriage between the two widely different fields of neurobiology, study of the human brain works, and computer science. Integration of these sciences created the discipline in neuroscience. Neuroscientists study with the neuroassociations that have discovered the neurons are constantly sending with electrochemical messages back and forth among neural pathways. Not unlike traffic and busy thoroughfare with the communications happening all at once and each of the other memory of moving along with its own path, literally ability with the other impulse of traveling in individual directions. The arrangement enabled the hopscotch mentally with the memories of the fine smell of evergreen forest of the after of the rain, haunting melody of the favorite Broadway musical of painstaking detail pains on an evening with a loved one, the exquisite side of the texture of the new neighbor's thumb. Knowledge of the complexity system allows us to enjoy the beauty of the world. It also helps us to survive each time we experience a significant amount of pain and pleasure with our brain searches for the cause and records the nervous system able to make the better decision about what to do in the failure. For example, the neuroassociation in your brain reminds you that sticking your hand into an open flame will burn you. You can conceivably make the mistake again and again until your hand is severely burned. Those neuroassociations quickly provide our brains with the signals to help us react if the memory itself to maneuver us through our lives. To a dual-minded mind, all nature is leading. To illuminated mind, the whole world burns and sparkles with light. Ralph Waldo Emerson. When we do something for the first time, create physical connection with the thin neural strand, with the low edge of the reaction, with the emotion, behavior again in the future, with the think of the way. Each time with the repeat the behavior, the connection strengthens. With another strand with a neural connection with the repetitive and emotional intensity, we can add many strands with the simultaneous increase with the tensile strength with emotional and behavior pattern until eventually even the trunk line of the behavior of feeling. This is when finds ourselves compelled with the feel. I feel these things in the behavior then consistently. In other words, connection becomes what I've labeled neuro superhighway that will take us down the automatic consistent route out of behavior. The neuro association, the biological reality is physically. It's physically. Again, this is why we think our way into the change that is usually affected with the neuroassociation survival. The tool they secured or neurosystem physical connections rather than tangible memories. Michael mechanism of the University of California, San Francisco is scientifically proven the more than we indulge in any pattern behavior, stronger the pattern become the mechanistic map the specific area of the monkey's brain when they activated a certain figure in the monkey's hand with a touch and to train one of the monkeys to use the finger predominantly in order to eat its food with the minister remap the touch of the activity activated area of the monkey's brain found that the area responds to the signal with the fingers. Additionally, you've expanded to inside of nearly 600%. Now the monkey continued behavior even as no longer rewarded because the neural pathway was strong enough to establish illustration of human behavior might be the person who no longer enjoys the smoking but still feels a compulsion to do so. Why would this be the case of the person who is physically wired to smoke? This explains why you may find it difficult to create a chain with emotional pattern of behavior than this path is merely have the habit. You've created a network strong with the neural association with the nervous system. We unconsciously develop the neural association by allowing ourselves to self-indulge emotion of the behavior, the consistent behavior that each time they indulge with emotion of the anger behavior, the yelling at a loved one, you reinforce neural connection and increase the likelihood that you'll do it again. And the good news is this. Research also shows that when a monkey is forced to stop using his finger, the area of the brain where the neural connections were made actually begin to shrink. Inside their neural associations are weakened. The good news for those who want change within their habits of still indulging particular behavior, the emotion long enough that it just interrupt the pattern of using an old pathway for a long enough period. Neural connection weakened, atrophy, disempowering emotional behavior, the behavior disappears with it. We should remember that also means that if you don't use passion, it's going to dwindle. Remember, courage unused diminishes, commitment unexercised warns, and love unshared dissipates. It's not enough to have a good mind. The main thing is to use it well. Rene Descartes. What association? Neural association with condition offers 6 steps that specifically designed to change the behavior, the breaking point, the disempower you. By the first, we understand how the brain makes of the neural association. In the first place, any time in the experience of miles of pain, pleasure of the brain immediately searches for the cause. It uses the following 3 criteria. The brain looks like something that appears to be unique, narrow down the likely cause of the brain tries to distinguish something unusual. The circumstance seems logical, but that you have the unusual feeling there must be an unusual cause. 2, your brain looks for something that seems to be happening simultaneously known with the psychological circle of the law of the recency. Does it make sense when a curve of the motion of the close proximity to it intends the pleasure of the pain is probably the cause of the sensation? 3, your brain looks for the consistency, having the pain and the pleasure. Your brain begins with immediately notice the year around with unique happenings simultaneously. The element that meets for the 2 criteria they also seem to occur consistently whenever you feel the pain and pleasure that you share with the brain will determine that it's called. The challenge of this of the course is that when we feel enough pain or pleasure, we tend to generalize about consistency. I'm sure that you had someone say to you always do that after you're doing something for the first time. Perhaps you've even said it to yourself. Because of the 3 criteria for the form of the neural association impresses. It's very usually easy to fall prey and misinterpretation created with what is called the false neural association. That's why we must evaluate linkage with the unconscious decision-making process. Often blame the wrong cause, thereby close ourselves offering probable solutions. I once knew a woman with a very successful artist who had a relationship with a man for 12 years. Now the woman is extremely passionate about everything she's did. What is it made? It was made for her such a great artist. However, when their relationship ended, that she found herself with massive pain. The brain immediately searched for the cause, searched for something that was unique to the relationship. The brain noted the relationship was especially passionate. Instead of identifying one of the beautiful parts of the relationship, she began to think about the reason of the relationship that ended. And her brain also looked for something with simultaneously with the pain. Again, noted that there had been a great deal of the passion right before it had ended. When she looked for something that were consistent again with the points, passion was pinpointed with the culprit because of the passion met all 3 criteria. Her brain decided that it must be reasonable the relationship to end painfully. Having linked this as a cause, she resolved never to feel that level of passion in relationship again. The classic example of false neuroassociation linked up with the fake cause. This was now guiding the current behavior, crippling the potential for a better relationship in the future. Real culprit of the relationship was that he and her partner with a different value in the roles, but because she linked in her to her passion. She avoided at all costs not only the relation, but even in her art, the quality of the entire life began to suffer. The perfect example of the strange ways in which sometimes wire ourselves, and you and I must understand how our brain makes association and question many of these connections. If you just accepted them in the maybe limiting ourselves the otherwise in our personal and professional lives, we are destined to feel unfulfilled and frustrated. Art, a source of self-sabotage, even more insidious next neuroassociation classic source of self-sabotage. If you ever find yourself starting to accomplish something, then destroying it at mixed neuroassociations, usually the culprit, because perhaps you business with the head and move within fits and start with a flourishing one day with a floundering the next. What is this all about? In this case, the associate with the pain and the pleasure with the same situation. One example, the lesson for the relay with the money with the other cultural people that have incredibly mixed association of wealth. There's no doubt that the people want the money, but they think it would provide them with the freedom and the more security, the chain with the contributed channel with the travel to learn, expand, and make a difference by simultaneously people to never climb over the certain earnings of the plateau between the deep down and associated to having excessive money to a lot of negatives. They associate that it too is greed, the being judged, distress and morality, lack of spirituality. One of the first experiences that I had to do a financial destiny seminar with a brainstorm all of the positive associations we have with the wealth, as well as the negative ones. One of the plus sides we write down such of the things as freedom, luxury, contribution, happiness, security, travel, the opportunity to make a difference. But my side, which was more. Alright, one of the first exercises I ask people to do is financial destiny seminar with a brainstorm of the positive association that help to wealth as well with the negative ones. One plus side with the write down such things as freedom, luxury, contribution, happiness, security, travel, opportunity, making a difference. But on the minus side, which is usually more full, they write down such things as fights with spouse, stress, guilt, plus sleep nights, intense effort, greed, shallowness, capitality, being judged, taxes. Do you not notice the difference for the intensity between the two sets of neural association? We do think it plays a stronger role in our lives. When you decide to do what to do, if the brain does have the clear signal which equals pain or equals pleasure, it goes to overload, becomes confused as a result of the loss of the momentum and the power to take the decisive action that could give you what you want. What gives you the mixed messages is going to get the mixed result. Think of the brain's decision maker process as being like a scale. If you were to do this, it would mean pain or pleasure. As you remember, it's not just a number of factors on each side of the way the individual carries. It's impossible that you have the pleasure with a painful association about money, but if it's just one negative association, very intense, the false neural association can wipe out our ability to succeed financially. What happens to you when you get to the point where you feel that you're going to have no pain no matter what you do? I call this the pain barrier. Often when the curves become immobilized, we won't know what we do. Usually shift the belief that less painful alternative. Some people have the all allows pain to overwhelm them completely and experience helplessness of these 6 steps within their association conditioning. Helping to interpret it in disempowering and patterns to create with the alternate path so that we're not just wishing away undesired behavior, overriding it with short-term, but our lack actually rewiring itself to feel and behave consistent with our new powering choices without changing the link and pain through the nervous system. No, change will last after you read and understand the following 6 steps that challenge you to choose something that you want to change in your life right now. Take action, follow that through with each of these steps you're about to learn, so that you not only read the chapter, but produces results of the let's begin to learn. Chapter 6: How to Change Anything in Your Life. The Signs of Neuroassociation, Associative Conditioning.